Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about campaign financing and Andrew Yang and the four categories of campaign financing and what they tell us about Andrew Yang and what they tell us about every other candidate in contrast to Andrew Yang. All right, so the four primary categories of campaign financing are small donors, big donors, right? This is all types of money, okay? Small money, big money, right? That's from small donors and big donors, all right? There is self money, money you put in yourself, right? And then the last one is transfer money. This is money that you got from other campaigns, other political campaigns, that you're now transferring into your current race. So you got this money through other political sources, through other political activity, and now you're transferring it from one campaign or one political activity to your current campaign, your current race, right? It's complete. And by the way, everything I just talked about, these are all completely legal ways to get money for your campaign, right? Now, the reason we're talking about them today is there's a beautiful, beautiful chart on Andrew Yang's Twitter. You'll find it like just one day behind the date of this video on Andrew Yang's Twitter, right? It's a beautiful bar chart. It has 11 candidates, right? And it shows the percentages, and it shows really clear colors for these categories: small donors, big donors, self-donation, and transfer money, okay? And so I'm gonna call these small money, big money, self money, right? Transfer money. And I'll even go further. I'll say small, big, transfer, self. Okay? All right, so we're going to talk about the small stuff first. Let's talk about, and by the way, this chart did a fantastic job of really showing the shape of Andrew Yang's money, right? And where he stands compared to everybody else, right? So let's talk this through, because there's a lot of ramifications here, right? And it teaches us things about Andrew Yang, and it teaches things about the candidates as opposed to Andrew Yang, all right? All right, so first and foremost, let's talk about self-money. All right, so on this chart, right, self-money is actually shown in red, right? And Steyer's incredible. He has like literally 80 or 90% of his bar is self-money. He is just burning his own cash, right, to prop up his campaign, right? Now, there's a little bit of complexity here, all right? Make no bones about it, I do not like Tom Steyer. I think he's probably, in my opinion, he is absolutely the worst candidate, right? Now, first of all, he's a billionaire who entered the race late. He entered, right, in time to qualify for the fourth debate, which means he just sat out the first three debates, and he spent millions and millions of dollars on campaign ads to buy name recognition. Everything he did was legal. Let's be clear about that, right? So he spent all this money to buy campaign ads, and he used his cash to avoid doing the actual hard labor that all the other candidates did. So he spent his own money so that he didn't have to shake Americans' hands. That's the best way to understand it, right? Now it gets worse, right? So one, like him coming in late is a big deal, right? So we, many of us, you and me, many people go to work, right? I would even say the majority of Americans, you have a job, right? If we're talking about voting, we're talking about adults, right? And adults generally have a job, right? And so at the macro level, we go to work, and you show up for work, right? And Sally's on time and Joe's late, right? Now the reality is, it's not the worst sin in the world for Joe to be late for work, right? You roll in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour late, whatever. You're going to stay late, you're going to make up that time, with some other thing, right? It's a thing that some people do, right? It's not the worst problem in the world, right? But get to the back, Joe. Get to the back, right? You can stroll in late, and you can stroll in late with a coffee you bought at Starbucks if you are a grunt scrub, right? If you are an individual contributor. But if you are the boss, or if you are a leader, you do not roll in late, right? You don't. You can't, right? This is the big leagues, Tom Steyer. You can't roll in with your coffee late to the party, right? Because there's really no excuse, right? Joe's got an excuse. He's like, hey, I stayed up all night playing StarCraft, right? What's Tom Steyer's excuse, right? I think if you would ask him, right, he's like, well, I had to think about it. Well, that means you're indecisive, right? Every other candidate was able to tell, that they needed to be in this from the start, right? They didn't find out once the thing was up and running, right? It takes him longer to figure things out, and it takes him long to be decisive, right? Guess what you need in a leader? People who can see patterns early and make quick decisions, right? Tom Steyer is objectively a bad candidate, right? And it is galling to roll in late for work when you're running for the U.S. president, right? It is absurd, and no one should take Tom Steyer seriously. It's absolutely galling what he's doing, and I find what he's doing just practically, it's galling. I think that's the kindest term I can apply to it. It drives me crazy, right? Right? Like, if you want to show him, like, get to the back. That ain't for people who want to be president, right? That's for people who want to work at, like, a fast food restaurant, right? Like, it's outrageous. And only a billionaire could think they could do it, right? It's absolutely absurd, right? Okay, all right, let me keep it moving. All right, by the way, there may be candidates who have put self-money in, but the amount is so small, it doesn't even show up on the chart. Steyer is the only person who has put in enough of his own money where it shows up on the chart. And it doesn't just show up a little bit on the chart. It's like a lot on the chart, right? So clearly Andrew Yang, like Tom Steyer, is not in Andrew Yang's league. He's not even in Julian Castro's league, right? It's just Julian Castro far surpasses Tom Steyer. And Julian Castro's got to be about the farthest back in the pack at this point, right? All right, so let's keep it moving. Let's talk about transfer money, right? Transfer money is fascinating, right? So everybody but 4 people on. So one, I'm not going to say another. Everything else I say excludes Tom Steyer, because I honestly, I think he really needs to be excluded, right? He's not a legitimate, genuine candidate that anyone could consider for hire, even at a fast food restaurant, right? Like, let alone the presidency, right? It's just absolutely galling what he's doing. All right, so transfer money. All right, let's talk. So only 4 candidates on the chart out of 11 candidates, right? And these are all the people who have already qualified for debate for November 20th, MSNBC, Washington Post, debate number 5, right? All right, so only 4 candidates do not have transfer money. Biden has no transfer money. Buttigieg has no transfer money. Yang has no transfer money, right? There's one more in there who does not have transfer money. It's escaping me right now. But there's one more in there who doesn't have any transfer money that they transferred from another campaign. Now, this is interesting because the transfer money, it shows up on these bar charts as yellow, right? And what it is it's crocodile money, right? It's like, I am a crocodile, right? Donald Trump talked about draining the swamp, right? It was a great analogy, right? And he's like, Washington is a swamp. Politicians live in the swamp. And he's right? Like, politics is so down and dirty that one of the reasons why I'm so excited about Andrew Yang is he's coming in externally, right? So he comes in clean, he has to deal with 8 years of it, and then he's out, right? And the reality is, even after if he runs for something after he's president, right, he's got that swamp juice on him, right? Like, basically, once you enter that swamp, you start your transformation into a crocodile. There's no way to do it otherwise, right? You got to swim in this fetid water, right? You have to deal with all these, these swamp creatures, and you will become a crocodile, right? And so transfer money shows the crocodiles, right? And you can see the crocodiles. They're incredible. Sanders, Warren, Tulsi, Julian, like they're all, throughout. It's all Cory Booker. It's all crocodiles, right? Just crocodiles, right? It's just people who have been marinated in the swamp and are incredibly comfortable in the swamp, right? Green, scaly skin, long white fangs, right? And that's what transfer money is. It is a badge that you get for being a crocodile, right? All right, so the last 2 are small money, big money. Let's talk about small money, big money. Now, the reason Andrew Yang posted this bar chart was he is number one in getting the most small money donors and the least big money donors, right? Well, let's talk about this, right? So, of course, Andrew Yang is my number one choice for candidate. I cannot wait to vote for him, right? Oh, by the way, here is my voting sticker. Right? I voted today, right? So, it is November 5th. And, of course, I voted today, right? Or maybe it's November 4th, one of those days or the other. But it's voting day, and I voted today. So, and that's good. And we should all be voting, in our local elections. And we're all moving toward casting this epic, historic vote for Andrew Yang in the primaries and then in the general, right? And so here's the thing. You have this small money and you have this big money donor, right? Donor pool. And Andrew's excited, and he put up this bar chart, and I get it. I understand why he's excited, right? Like, he's excited that he has gotten the majority of his funding from small donors and kept his funding from his big donors down, right? Now, there are some things to celebrate within that, right? So one of the things I think is nice to celebrate is, okay. Got to bring up Tom Steyer again, right? So one, Tom Steyer and Andrew Yang are similar in one thing. Neither one of them is a politician. They're coming in from external, right? They're coming in from the corporate world. Andrew Yang is also coming in from the benevolence world. They're coming in from high education world, right? They both have really solid, impressive educations that they're going to use to leverage for the job, okay? So they're both, but here's the thing, right? Tom Steyer is running for president and does not have enough charisma or political ability, right, to get people to fund him, which means that he is unlikable, right? When he needed to go get the money for his own campaign, he had to use his own money because there was no line of people who would give them their money, right? And it's really interesting. If you listen to Andrew Yang, he explains how he got into this race. He said, I really learned a lot about this automation problem, and I went and found a solution for the automation problem, which is universal basic income, right? Which he has renamed Freedom Dividend, which is a great name, right? And he's like, and I talked to my wife Evelyn, and I said, hey, I want to run for president because I think it's really important that UBI is used to fix this automation problem. And she's like, well, that's great, but you don't have to do that. We'll wait and we'll see if somebody else comes in and runs on UBI to fix the automation problem. Why has this got to be you to fix it, right? And Andrew's like, yeah, you know what? If somebody else runs on UBI to fix the automation problem, I can just be a normal citizen and I can give them my vote and, do everything, hand out stickers and go to rallies and do everything necessary to help them get there, right? But that didn't happen. Nobody saw what Andrew Yang saw. Nobody saw the automation storm, and nobody saw the Freedom Dividend as the solution, right? So Andrew entered the race himself, right? And he talked to a UBI expert, and he said, what's my next step? So Andrew Yang said to the UBI expert, what's my next step, right? And he said, well, if you're serious about this, you need to make a list of people who will give you $1,000 to start your campaign, right? And he did it, right? And boy, that's hard, right? Like, you got to think about the people you like, who like you, right? Who know you and trust you, and say, I want $1,000 of your money. That's incredibly difficult, right? But Andrew Yang was able to do it. He got up his gumption. He choked down his not wanting to ask people for something. And he said, I have a vision and I want you to sign on to this vision. And his charisma and his likability, right, and his political prowess were enough to make that list real and carry him forward. Tom Steyer's not the same, right? Now, here's the thing. Both Tom Steyer and Andrew Yang are concerned citizens with drive. They're not politicians, right? They're lay people who are coming in from the outside to do a job that needs to be done. This is incredibly noble, and I think this is the future of politics, right? I think politicians as president is finished. I don't think it's going to happen again. I really don't, right? And so I think this is the future, right? But you got to recognize who does it better, right? Tom Steyer is so unlikable. There was no line of people to give him money. It's just his own money. That's the only way he could do this is burning his own cash. That tells you about something. You don't want somebody who can't even get a line of people to give them money to move into this, to move strong into this presidential race, right? That's got to be, and there's an incredibly high bar to running for president, and there should be a high bar because it's the hardest job in the world. Okay, all right. So we talked about that, right? Now, let's talk about small money, small versus big money. So the small money thing, right? So we got this small money issue, and we have, and so Andrew's proud that small donors have given small amounts, and that this isn't coming from big energy, big big pharma, big agro, big agriculture, right? Big food, right? Like these huge industries, right, that have millions and millions of dollars to give to these campaigns, right? And it's interesting. So I get it, right? Clap, 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 right? And I give him his moment, right? Like, but here's my issue. It doesn't impress me. It really doesn't, right? So there's so many problems with this small donor, big donor thing. I'm begging you, right? Please recognize noise and recognize signal. This whole small donor, big donor thing is noise, and it is not signal, right? Here, and I'll tell you why right now. Okay, so one, the big donor money is in our politics for a very specific reason, right? So one, Americans, especially American voters, talk out of two sides of their mouth. They're right. Like, hey, the part that they don't like about big donors, right, about big energy, big pharma, big agriculture, right, the part they don't like, right, is they don't like wealth aggregation, right? And here's the thing, with large corporations, there is wealth aggregation. The people who are dealing with lobbying, the people who are giving money by the millions to campaigns, they have done wealth aggregation, right? They are wealthy and they are aggregating more wealth. And people don't like that part, right? But I'm going to tell you the part they do like, that you never, ever hear. That is real signal, and it's just as important as the part that they don't like with the wealth aggregation, all right? So let's talk about roasted seaweed snacks. All right, here we go. All right. So I try to make healthy choices with my food. I'm not great at it. It's one of the things I struggle with the most, right? I have a bad relationship with food because, food is, the biggest thing is when I'm stressed, right? If I just eat a candy bar, that reduces my stress, right? And it replaces behaviors that are far more destructive, right? And so, so it's tough, right? So one of the things I'm trying to do is focus and get better at eating the right things and not the wrong things, right? Eating smaller portions, exercising more, right? Now I'm in a tough time right now for exercise because I love to bicycle. And at this time of year, it's winter time and it gets super cold and you can't ride your bike, right? So it's a tough time right now. So I've been trying to do this roasted seaweed snacks, all right? So roasted seaweed snacks, they're also called nori, right? Which is a Korean word for it, right? And they're fantastic. They come in a little container. The container is about the size of, it's about 3 inches by 2 inches, right? And it is a plastic tray, and then a dozen small sheets of roasted seaweed with wasabi flavor or Korean barbecue flavor, and a little desiccant pouch, and it's in a foil wrapping, right? This thing, right, which I think, I'm pretty sure is created like in Korea, right, like halfway across the world, right, is made in mass, is super clean, is super uniform, is super useful, super healthy, and it costs 50 cents. 50 cents. Now, how on earth can you sell a product that is amazingly clean, amazingly uniform, amazingly cheap, amazingly convenient for 50 cents that was made on the other side of the planet, right? Guess how? Big donor energy, right? Big corporations. They make our lives massively more convenient, massively cleaner, massively safer, massively better. They bring innovation, enhancement, right? They bring improvement at a scale that we have never seen on this planet ever, right? So that's the part you're not hearing with big donor money, right? Yes, they do wealth aggregation, but they make your life better in 1,000 small ways, which makes your life better, massively better. And not a small amount. There is massive innovation, massive enhancement, massive scale on your products, right? And it's everything you use. It's the material you use in your hair, the food you use, the shoes you wear, the car you drive. Every single part of your life is better because of large corporations, right? And so basically this idea that these large corporations are evil and that, they really shouldn't have any voice in politics is not true for most Americans. Most Americans are fully aware that they love these big corporations because these big corporations make their lives better in 1,000 small ways. Yay, capitalism. This is why Bernie loses, right? And why the capitalist Andrew Yang wins. That is my breakdown on Andrew Yang and the 4 areas of campaign financing. Small money, big money, transfer money, and self money. Thank you for letting me share these ideas with you today. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.